the center of the park, kind of at the end of the parking lot with the skate park over to where it was originally discussed. To the south of the bathrooms is where folks were very satisfied with. This is a starting point, however. There are many more items and details that need to be worked out in terms of things like allocation, what can we afford, what can the parties afford, the procurement process, these may be a good candidate for a design build, looking at use agreements or agreements in terms of performance related to events, things like that. I think the first step, depending on council's input, would be to work with the two groups. We could perhaps prepare a request for proposal if council wanted us to move in that direction. We'll take a look at some things that we have in our file. We do have some old geotech that we might refer to that might be applicable. If we don't, then that's something that we may be able to schedule. But this is, it's great that we've gotten to this point, but there's 100 other things that we have to do now beyond this, and we certainly look forward to your input on. And I think there are some reps that were in attendance, Councilman White and Monroe, as well as Keeney. Robin was there, I believe. And so I'd certainly...
Just to confirm, you mentioned the location being agreed upon for the pavilion is in the center of the park. Are we leaving the skate park to the right as you pull in, as we've discussed?
Yes.
Not the center that you're thinking, I don't think. It's more off.
One that we reviewed on the map? Yes, ma'am. Okay. And it's council's desire that staff continue to push forward with these projects? Anybody have any additional input to offer? Thank you. Item number 3 on the workshop agenda, discussion and presentation from Christmas on the Creek Committee.
Thank y'all for allowing us to.
Really work on speaking into the microphone. They've got us recording, and if we don't talk into it, then the people at home can't hear, and then they get mad, and then I get mad at you. So.
All right, I don't want you mad at me. We do appreciate all the help that the city has given us the last few years since we've started Christmas on the Creek. And as you'll see in front of you in folders that we've put out for each of you, we have a request for funding for this year, and we've kind of given you an idea of our plans, what we're looking at for the creek this year. During the time period, we'll have lights up and displays out. And as you read through that, if you come across anything that you have a question about or comment, then don't be afraid to ask. If I can't help you, we have other members here that will be glad to step in. There also is a couple of maps. I'm still not getting loud enough. Sorry.
I don't know if I need to raise it or just move it closer to you.
Just move it closer. That should be fine. How about that? The second page on there shows you a layout of the Santa's Village. There are some current models that will be in there, but there will also be some new ones. The courthouse being one prime example that our volunteers are working on, painting on, done a great job so far. The next one shows we have had the 12 Days of Christmas down along the drive from the Key Avenue Bridge up to the main park area, but we decided to move those onto the stage this year. They can get a better look there, a little bit more light, and we're also planning in that area where we used to have these to put some more lighted pole trees there. And that's one of the big things we are planning on now, several small 8-foot ones and a larger 20-foot one. down in that area. And they will be lighted, similar but not near as grandiose as what Zilker Park has down in Austin. Next picture, you can see some of the candy canes that we worked on and put up last year. We plan to add a few more to go all along the railing on that sidewalk next to the creek. And that is in progress now. And then the next page shows you the arches that we had up lit, the lighted arches that were beside the creek as well. That was a very eye-opening and dazzling display, I think. I think it brought a lot of people down there. We had lots of people taking pictures, their families underneath there, walking back and forth. And it was a really good addition to the park. And you can see the lit display in the bottom picture there and what it looked like. And then there was a photo op area where we had our crew again built this out of a frame with lots of different size ornaments and other doodads that we put on there. And it was a great place for families also to get photos and use Christmas cards or anything else. We plan on doing a little bit better lighting on it this year to make it pop a little more and make it better for photography. So basically, those are our plans, again, to cover the trees, the canopies in the park area. And we've had Mr. Hodges, Lucian Hodges, do that the past few years. He's done a great job. His crew seems to have that down. They've done a good job putting it up, taking it down. We had a few problems the first year especially with removal after the season was over. So when Lucian came along and bid for it, we said, let's try him, and he's done a really good job, and I think he really enjoys doing that, and his crew too. So we would like to continue having him. We have had someone ask about bidding for the job, but in our discussions with other people that know the person, they don't think he has the experience to take on a big job like that as yet. So we're going to continue, I think, with Lucian, and we may have other talks with the other person down the line. You can see some of the volunteer hours that have been put in the past. A lot of this has been curtailed. Some of it hadn't been tallied up completely yet, as some of us have been doing on our own, or one or two people, not a big group like we've done in the past, getting together due to the COVID response. So those hours will grow as we get closer to the time we're going to start putting the displays out and everything up and get our displays going. So our request simply is to provide the funding for lighting of the tree canopies. I believe y'all participated in that last year. We'd also like to do that, ask for y'all to do that again this year. I know it's been a tough year all around. We think the Christmas on the Creek displays and all that goes on down there is a good thing for the morale of the community. It's a great thing to have for people coming through town to see. As we put more lights down there and stretch it on down toward Key Avenue Bridge, we'll get more people coming that way to see it, maybe pull through and stop at some of our businesses and take advantage of that. So that's kind of a side thing that we hope will happen. But main thing is we want to provide something for the citizens of the city and the county to come in and see what we can do with our great asset of that creek coming through town, and at least part of it. We would like to have a scaled-down event on December 12th. I think that's the week after the Carol of Lights, whatever way that's going to be held and how it's going to be held, but we would like to have a Santa wander through the park on that night, maybe giving out candy canes and saying hi to kids, but not necessarily sitting down and letting them sit on his lap. And we just have to see how the COVID-19 pandemic plays out here. But that's one of the things we'd like to do. Excuse me. Also, the possibility of sleigh rides. We've had the sleigh ride in the past couple of years, and would like to do that again, but we would have to follow the CDC guidelines and as well as city and state guidelines and keeping that safe for everybody as they ride. And we would be willing to do that, and volunteers, our group would be down there to help out with that on that night as well. So, are there any questions what I've covered so far?
Mr. Love, on the
Yes.
theft you had at the storage unit, has any of that been recovered?
Not to my knowledge.
Any ideas? I think LAFTA was also broken into the same time frame.
Yes. From what I understand from the police, they have an idea who has done it or who has been doing some of these around, but they can't pinpoint exactly, and they can't find them any merchandise or any of the equipment that was taken. They seem to get rid of it very quickly, and I don't know whether it's online or take it out of town to other cities and set up in a flea market or what they do. But
So
an
those,
ongoing investigation is all I know.
yeah, those bouncy animals, they're all gone?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you replace them at all, or
Yes, ma'am.
you got,
They have them
are you
available.
asking for donations from people?
We
to,
were very lucky to have an outpouring of donations from
Good.
people around that heard about our predicament, and been very generous, and I think we'll be able to replace
Good.
everything that was taken out of there without a problem. So,
That in itself
Appreciate
is
you asking.
encouragement to go ahead and continue with all of your efforts, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Your committee does a tremendous job. We appreciate the fact that even though everything seems to be a little bit more difficult at this time, that you wish to continue with what you're doing.
right.
Finley, just to clarify, we earmarked in the budget process the same amount of money for this year for Christmas on the Creek.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank y'all for listening.
Yeah, thank y'all very, very much. Council have anything else they want to add? Next item is discussion regarding fiscal year 2020-2021 City of Lampasas budget.
Mayor and council, we're going to use this workshop agenda item just to tie up a few loose ends and to answer some of your questions regarding the FY21 budget, which you will take formal action on later in this agenda item. You have the budget by major account at your seat at the dais, and as a reminder, for the last 2 or 3 years, I think we have only built the full-blown budget by major as well as budget by minor account and explanations on request. So if you do have a desire to have that bound version with the budget by minor account, we'd be happy to do that. Just let us know and we'll put that together for you. Just wanted to touch base on some of the minor adjustments that we've made over the last couple of weeks. We did include a part-time utility billing and collection personnel. One of the other items that was discussed was the interceptor study, which you have the proposal of in your packet. That came in at about $35,250. That was not included in the budget. I think staff discussed this, and we also discussed it with Councilman Clark and felt like it's an item that we would revisit perhaps mid-year, depending on if finance is allowed. We also wanted to point out to you that we had budgeted about $20,000 for electric and street shop bathroom renovation. Our quotes that we received actually came in higher than that, but I think Ricky is working with the electric and street, and I think they're going to be able to cover that out of their budgets. You know, basically it's going to be about $6,000 to $7,000 per department to cover that difference in that. Other than that, if there are any questions or any other items you'd like to provide direction on, we're prepared to hear what you have to say and take your input.
Council have any questions?
Not me.
I just have one comment regarding the interceptor study. I did review the document that Mr. Eckerman included in here, and it is very extensive in its study, and I for sure think that we're going to be facing that pretty soon down the line. But I have agreed with Finley that we can look at it sometime during the budget year and see if, although it needs to be done, I realize there are also other priorities, so.
I appreciate you utilizing your expertise in that area to work with staff on this. Anything else? Thank you, staff, for all your work. Item number 5, discussion and updates concerning COVID-19.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I wanted to bring you some numbers that we have as of yesterday. These are the latest numbers. I haven't gotten an update from Dr. Hay yet. I'm sure that's coming. You can give them to us in a minute. In the state of Texas, we have 67,412 active cases of COVID-19 as of Sunday. The fatality count is now at 14,190. There are currently 3,319 COVID patients hospitalized. The positivity rate is 8.11%. If you'll remember, we've discussed positivity rate before and the hospitalizations. Those numbers are way down from what they were a month ago. A month ago, the positivity rate was actually at 16.8%. The day before that, it was at 24%. So these numbers are coming down drastically. Moving to Lampasas County, we have at this time, there are 36 active cases. Hang on a second. On July 31st, there were 36 active cases. We had a total of 179 cases. Since that time, we decreased our daily average significantly. The typical active case count is anywhere from 16 to 23. There's no way to assign a number to that. It just depends on what day of the week it is and how many people got tested, basically. We'll see a number down as low as 16, and the next day it'll jump up to 23, and then back at 18 the next day. So it's a very random number in there, but that's kind of our daily number that we see. If it's outside of that, it causes me to ask questions. Why did it get so high, or how did it get so low? Our total case number right now is 285, and our actual county fatality rate is 9. There's some different numbers depending on which website you see. It could be 10 and it could be 6, but according to Dr. Hay, 9 is the official number for our fatality rate. One bit of update, the last conference call that I had was last Tuesday. During that discussion, that hour time period, a lot of questions came out. One of the statements that was made just in the beginning dialogue was the fact that the moderator said that, hey, we are in this for the long haul. And then they led with the conclusion that regardless of what these numbers pan out to be, as we go down, because statewide we're dropping numbers significantly, just like ours have. Our positivity rate's low, our active cases rates are very, very low. We're down from 120,000 active cases at the beginning of August to now we've got 67,000 active cases. Until they come up with a vaccine, I don't anticipate that there are going to be any changes from the governor's office as far as opening up anything more, removing any mask orders or anything like that. In the question and answer period, I specifically asked that, are there numbers that we're looking for on this, or is there a certain hospitalization rate or anything like that? And the response was the fact that really until we have a vaccination for this, or until we develop some type of a herd immunity, that we should not anticipate that there be any change in what we have going on currently. I know that that's not good news to anybody. I know that we have a long way to go before we really anticipate seeing an effective vaccine in that. Some of the vaccination trial periods have actually stopped at this point because they've had some untoward effects. I wish I could give you some direction on which way to go with that, but I'm just bringing you the news that I had from last week. I think that if you look at what we've done by wearing the mask, I think you would be able to tell that, hey, this definitely proves out. We've cut the positivity rate, we've cut the hospitalization rate. We still have the active cases and they're coming down, but as far as how long we're going to go through this, like the gentleman said, who knows what COVID is going to look like during Christmas at the creek. I think that may give us an idea of what Christmas is going to look like, Christmas during the creek, what COVID is going to look like. So if you have any questions for me, I'll be glad to answer those at this time. And
I do have one, because you had mentioned you don't think the governor's going to lift the mask order. When we have events that y'all approve that are over 10 people, are they required to wear masks at those events?
depending on what the event is, what I try to do is, depending on where that event is, if it's an outside event or an inside event, there's different guidance on that. The governor's office actually has a web page where you can go through and you can find out where that all fits. What I typically do with anybody that petitions for any type of event, I send them 3 links. Sometimes I send them more than that. They all involve the individual responsibility, if you are a business or a merchant, what your responsibilities are, and then if it fits into an outside event, I send that to them. Once they've read that, I speak to them, and we have a dialogue in there as far as understanding of how important it is that they comply with not only state guidelines, but also anything else that we would like to impose upon them or ask of them to do. As far as mask and hand cleaning, those are always in that guidance. Those are always in things that we suggest for them. Other things than that, when you're outside, you do not need to wear a mask unless you're not able to socially distance, and then it says that you are supposed to wear a mask. Those are always in the guidelines that I present to them. I can tell you that as far as we've had several people, Chris Eicher can vouch for you on this, with the softball leagues and tournaments, Lampasas Riding Club, Putters and Gutters, they've all had repetitive events of different types. In speaking with them on numerous types, getting research from people that are out there with the Lampasas Riding Club or that are at Putters and Gutters, the feedback that I get from most people all the time is always positive. If we had any cares or concerns that they weren't complying with anything, we would definitely notify our police department, have them investigate and make sure that we followed up with that. Probably the best example of that is the initial football game that we had here. It didn't come under our review before it came under the UIL review. Once they did that, I think you saw a scaled back version of that this last weekend there, and I think it proved out to be very beneficial to them. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it did.
Okay.
Thank you.
And to add to the update that we're doing, a lot of people come and ask us, well, when we hit 20 active cases, when are we going to file for the exemption with the governor to be in the classification of counties with less than 20 active cases so that we can remove the mask order? Dr. Hoyer's watching that, monitoring that. We don't want to apply too early. And like Chief was saying, our numbers kind of fluctuate within a 5 or 6 count range. If it goes back over the 20, then you automatically go back to the mask and you can't apply again for the exemption for 30 days. So we don't want to jump the gun. But Dr. Hoyer's monitoring that as well.
Yes, that's true. I think once we really get past, and I know that these have all been discussed many times, and I'm sure you can hear it on any local news channel or national news channel. You know, you had the starting back of school, and really for us to start a school when we did and to be where we're at, I think that proves out to be very successful. You had the Labor Day weekend, which we're still waiting to see those numbers. We should start seeing those at the end of this week and then by the beginning of next week. Well, then you're going to go, okay, what about the Halloween numbers? And then you're going to go, what about the Thanksgiving numbers? And what about the Christmas numbers and New Year's numbers? And then, you know, you've got everybody else that, well, what about the election date? Is all this going to be over after the election date? Personally, and I'll bring this in person, I mean, I'm as open and wanting us to do the things that we can do. I relish the fact that I get to look at the plans that people are making to have these events, and I promised the city manager, and I promised the mayor, and I talk to the individuals that are hosting these events, and I let them know that I want them to do this. Lampasas Riding Club is a great example of somebody that should be doing the events that they're doing, and they put everything together and they bring a good document to you as far as what they have in place. But the people that say that this is all going to go away after election time, I don't think that that's a very valid point, because this is a very real virus. It does affect people. And until it affects you personally on that level, until you see that it does come with that, you know, you kind of almost don't want to go with that. So it's something that we need to continue to do, to have watch over, but I don't think it's anything that if we wear masks, if we wash our hands, if we use good sound judgment, that we shouldn't be able to overcome and deal with, regardless of what our little area is all about in there. I think that we have ways of getting out in the community and being an active part in the community and supporting the business people in this community and maintaining them, and also for the mindset of the citizens of this community. I mean, it's good to be outside. It's good to be doing things that are normal, and I would urge everybody to do that and not be hesitant about doing that.
Thank you, Chief. We have any discussion regarding any item on the regular agenda? Do I have a motion to adjourn workshop?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Let's go ahead and take a 5 or 10, how long do you want to? Let's do a 10-minute break since we have to go upstairs and downstairs. So 10-minute time. You're all standing up. I'll do so now. Mr. Cummings, if you don't mind leading us in prayer.
Amen. Please join me for the pledge.
We don't have any presentations or proclamations this evening, so item 1.1, public hearing, citizens' comments. Any citizen who desires to address the city council on a matter not included on the agenda may do so at this time. The city council may not deliberate on items presented under this agenda item. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak about an item that is not included on the agenda this evening? Item 1.2, citizens' comments. Any citizen who desires to address the city council on a matter that is included on the agenda may do so at this time. Is there anyone who wishes to speak about any item that is included on the agenda? No? Item 1.3, public hearing. Public hearing to receive citizens' comments regarding approval, denial, or approval with modifications for a manufactured home overlay, MHO, to an existing single-family 6 SF6 zoning district. The property is described as lots 9 through 11, block 24.2380 acres of the GC and SF addition, commonly known as 1306 East Avenue H, Lampasas, Texas, Lampasas County.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Cisneros is asking for a mobile home overlay to the property that they currently have. It is currently a vacant lot. They had a home on it previously a couple of years ago, and they had that demolished due to it being substandard. So at this time, they've come to us and asked us for a mobile home overlay for the designation over the single-family residential home. I did send out notices to 15 letters to property owners. We did receive one in protest. It's in your packet, but they just felt that it would decrease their property value. This was presented to Planning and Zoning on Thursday, September the 3rd. They did recommend approval. It was 4 members in favor, 2 were opposed, and then 1 was absent.
Could I ask why the 2 opposed?
It was brought up to the, regarding the floodplain. One of the members felt that it was really close in proximity to where eventually over time that it could be a potential hazard at that time. Right now, currently with the way that the floodplain is identified through FEMA, it is not in the floodplain, but it is in proximity to where the floodplain lies. But like we had addressed and explained, that is something that we can adhere to, making it more of a structural foundation. And then this is scenarios where we're very accommodating with like the slab. We'll have to remove the axles. There's things that we have to do with the mobile home to make it more of a permanent structure. And that is something that we would focus on if it became a danger to or an impact to the flood zone.
So the homeowners are willing to put down the slab and everything else they need to do?
Yes,
what
and that
you're
is
saying?
something
Okay.
that is something that for the building process, we'd actually go through and verify. Because like I said, it's not in the floodplain by any means, but it is in close proximity. But part of the requirements, which is in your packet for a mobile home, is to remove the axle, we remove the wheels, we make it more of a structure where it's more foundation, where it's more secure, and then it's on an unapproved surface. With that, we can add more stability by anchors that make it more of a permanent foundation to prevent it for any dangerous flooding or electricity or anything else that could happen.
Did staff have any concerns regarding the floodplain?
Frank and I do not. We've looked at it and discussed it.
Any additional comments or questions?
I had one comment on the owner that had protested. It said that he fails to maintain his property fence and alleyway. Have y'all looked at that to see if that is accurate or?
It was addressed at the planning and zoning meeting, and Mrs. Scenera said that they do maintain it as far as mowing. They didn't realize the fence had fallen over, but in one of these pictures that I have in there, it does show where the fence is laid over, and she said that once they do the improvements and put the new home there, it will all be maintained and taken care of appropriately.
Okay, thank you.
Have a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. 1.4, public hearing to receive citizens' comments to consider approval, denial, or approval with modifications of request for a specific use permit in an area zoned Commercial C to allow for 2 family residential duplexes, SF2. The property is described as Block 3, part of Lot 3, lots 4 through 7, East Lampasas Edition, portion of Mill Street between College and Briggs Street.
Mayor and Council, Mr. Ankerbird is asking for this property to be rezoned so that he can actually build duplexes. And as part of our zoning regs with commercial, they can do duplexes. However, it has to be with a specific use permit. So that's what we're asking for y'all to consider this evening. We did mail out 15 notices to property owners within the 200 foot. There was 3 letters that were received in favor of the request and none in opposition. This was heard before Planning and Zoning on September the 3rd, and the commission does recommend approval.
Not in regards to this specific request, but as I'm looking at the comment option where they can reply from the neighbors, can we go back to where we actually put the name of who that's coming from on there, as we're not able to read those signatures? If you could
Yes,
give us
ma'am.
who those are.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I will.
Council have any questions? The public have any questions or comments during this public hearing portion? Do you have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Item 1.5, public hearing to receive citizens' comments to consider approval, denial, or approval with modifications a request for a specific use permit in an area zoned Commercial C to allow for microblading, cosmetic tattooing services. The property is described as Block 2, Lot 8, East Lampasas Edition, commonly known as 1002 East 4th Street, Lampasas, Texas, Lampasas County.
Mayor and Council, Jack Harrell, who is the property owner, and Kelsey Eastep, who is the applicant, they're asking for a specific use permit for her to be able to do microblading services. This is brought before y'all before with in reference to tattooing, which is semi-permanent makeup. The way our zoning regs are written, it has to be done this way with regarding to this type of services being provided. So it requires a specific use permit. However, with all that being said, it is something that I do want to consider and have our zoning regs updated to reflect in the salons going forward, that we do add this microdermal type cosmetics in there as a permitted service that's being provided, just because it's becoming more popular. So I think it's going to be something I'll be bringing to you more often. So I'm looking at wording and looking at where the best fit is, but I do want to add it to our current zoning regs. I did bring this up to the Planning and Zoning Commission as well on Thursday, and they were fine with it as well, and they look forward to seeing what I come up with and how I place it into our zoning regs. So with that being said, I did send out 14 notices to property owners within a 200-foot radius. I did receive 4 in return. 3 were in favor, 1 was opposed, and that's just because they did not believe in any tattooing of any sort whatsoever, whether it's permanent or temporary or what have you. And they just didn't feel it was right.
And so the opposition from the PNC, was that because of the tattooing as well?
Yes, that was one person, and actually that member did not speak per se at the public hearing part. Just when it came to actually approving or denying, he just wasn't comfortable with approving it.
Do you have any additional questions? Any comment from the public on this public hearing? Do I have a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Item 1.6, public hearing to receive citizens' comments regarding a request to consider approval, denial, or approval with modifications of a minor plat of Portwood described as 3.01 acres out of the John Burleson Survey, abstract number 42, City and County of Lampasas, Texas, generally located at 1316 Central Texas Expressway.
Mayor and Council, this is pretty straightforward. It's just a minor plat to subdivide the 3 acres into 2 lots for development. One of them is a flag lot, so typically this would not come before you because it's something we could do administratively. But because it being kind of an abnormal way of accessing off of 190, we took it to Planning and Zoning for them to review as well. They were in favor of the actual minor plat approval, and we're just asking for you to do the same at this time.
Questions or comment from council? Public? I have a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you, Becky. Moving along, 2.0 minutes. 2.1, discussion and possible action concerning approval of minutes of the regular meeting on August 24th, 2020. I have a motion from council.
Recommend approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I have to abstain, I was gone.
All in favor with 1 abstention. Item 3.0, consent agenda. 3.1, discussion and possible action regarding purchases and charges in excess of $4,000 from August 1st, 2020 to August 31st, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. We don't have any board and department reports this evening. 5.0, routine matters. 5.1, city manager's operational report.
Mayor and Council, just a few brief comments. Wanted to give you a slight recap on the wet weather and the lightning that we've had over the last couple of weeks. It all started September 2nd, that's coincidentally the day I left town. But we did have that thunderstorm and lightning storm that sat on us. We did get some isolated outages. We had some problems at the substation as well as on individual fuses in our distribution system. The longest outage that we had was estimated at about an hour and a half. Staff between electric, street, fire department, police department just did an outstanding job on that particular night. Also, we experienced obviously some localized flooding. You know, our usual suspects, Willis, Naruna, Hackberry did receive water that resulted in their closure, as well as we did have one car go into the Hackberry low water crossing. We did also have some issues in and around this building. The large pecan tree that's right out, on Mike's left shoulder did take a direct hit by lightning. It did also cause us some loss of hardware and switches. We think that tree may be okay. We've had Mr. Hodges look at it as well as our staff, and we're crossing our fingers and going to keep an eye on it. But all in all, we came through it fine. Not a whole lot of damage. Did have some leaks here at the Calvert building. That was the result of some scupper flashing needing to be just put back in place. We're pleased that the contractor was out here basically within 6 hours of a phone call and made those repairs. Bike trails, the mayor and staff have been approached regarding the possibility of developing some mountain bike trails at the 580 Sports Park. We have approximately 100 to 120 acres there that I think we would all, I think generally everybody understands that they'd like that to be used for some sort of more primitive hiking, biking, trail system. But we are beginning to look at that and taking a look at what process we might go through. It is on the park board agenda for September 17th. The other brainstorm that we had is how do we connect 580 to the rest of our system, and so we also discussed the possibility of maybe doing bike lanes from Avenue B all the way to Campbell Park, either down First Street or something like that. But it would just be at least maybe another way to get folks from point A to point B in a little safer fashion than having to go out on 580. So we'll continue to take a look at that, and we'll certainly report back to you on the park board discussion. Comp plan, we have set up meetings on the 21st. We're doing small group meetings, about 4 or 5 per meeting time, to take a look at the recommendation outline. We certainly, council's had the opportunity to take a look at this particular session before, but we would certainly invite you, if you have a desire to come and sit in on that and provide input, please let Becky know and we can schedule you in for the 21st. We'll do that basically at 4 different times during the day. So during the day, and I think we have one evening or semi-evening meeting, 5:30, right. Avenue E, just to let you know that they continue to make progress. The wet weather did slow them up, but I think they generally are on schedule. Basically, they have gotten the width cut from Porter to Spring. They have brought in base, compacted the base. We haven't also installed box culverts previously, and Mike Blair continues to work with the contractors and also is becoming very close friends with a lot of the neighbors up there. So we appreciate his work. We think that's an excellent use of city resources. Internet, we continue to work with ISPs to complete their respective pole attachment agreements. In fact, we finalized one today. They continue to roll in terms of their design and inspecting routes and installing their base infrastructure. We did have actually one ISP that found some bad old poles that we needed to have replaced that were split at the top from lightning strikes, et cetera. And we've already made those, replaced those poles. So, and then I also want to let you know that we will be getting some press before too long. The Dispatch Record will be doing a story on us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
5.2, mayor's comments, just a couple of shout outs of gratitude. One to staff and the council members and LAFTA board members that were able to take time out of your day last week to meet and discuss the locations for the pavilion and the skate park. I appreciate that. Also want to extend a thank you to Chief Bailey, Chief Smith, and Ms. Sims for what continues to be quite an extensive process of event approval every week. The events are numerous. I think we took for granted how many things actually go on until you have to actually put your name at the bottom of every one of them. So I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel where that process is going to stop, but as you go through it, just know I do appreciate it. We don't have any unfinished business this evening. 7.0 new business. 7.1, discussion and possible action concerning the first reading of an ordinance approving and adopting a budget for operating the municipal government of the city of Lampasas for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2020, and ending on September 30th, 2021, appropriating money for various funds and purposes of such budget, including appropriations of money to pay interest and principal, sinking fund requirements on all indebtedness, providing a repealer clause for the repeal of all ordinances and appropriations in conflict with the provisions of this ordinance, and establishing an effective date.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the first reading of the ordinance to officially adopt the budget for fiscal year 2021, and it does have to be a roll call vote, please.
Williamson,
Approve.
I need a motion first. Sorry.
Make a motion to approve the first reading of the ordinance approving and adopting a budget.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second. This time we'll take a roll call vote.
Williamson,
Approve.
Monroe,
Approve.
Talbert,
Approve.
White,
Approved.
Clark,
Approved.
Toops,
Approve.
Caney,
Approve.
Item 7.2, discussion and possible action concerning the first reading of an ordinance setting the tax rate and levying a tax upon all property subject to taxation within the city of Lampasas, Texas for the 2020 tax year, and the use and support of the municipal government of the city of Lampasas for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2020, and ending September 30th, 2021, apportioning said levy among various funds and items for which revenue must be raised, including providing a sinking fund for the retirement of the bonded debt for the city of Lampasas, and establishing an effective date. That was correct to change that to 2020, correct?
That's what mine says is
Okay,
2020
ours
in the
says
book.
2019 on this item, so I just want to make sure I changed it correctly.
The one that's in the book says 2020.
Okay.
I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of .395218, which is effectively a 1.08% increase in the tax rate.
Second.
I do have a motion and a second. It does need to be a roll call vote, which we will take at this time.
Williamson,
Approve.
Monroe,
Approve.
Talbert,
Approve.
White, Clark,
Approved.
Toops,
Approve.
Caney,
Approve.
7.3, discussion and possible action ratifying the property tax revenue increase reflected in the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget.
According to the local government code, we have to ratify the vote on the tax rate with another recorded vote.
I have a motion from council.
So moved.
Second.
At this time, I'll take another roll call vote.
Williamson,
Approve.
Monroe,
Approve.
Talbert,
Approve.
White,
Approved.
Clark,
Approved.
Toops,
Approve.
Caney,
Approve.
Thank you.
I approve of this message. Thank you. 7.4, discussion and possible action regarding the first reading of an ordinance to consider approval, denial, or approval with modifications for a manufactured home overlay, MHO, to an existing single-family 6 SF6 zoning district. The property is described as lots 9 through 11, block 24, 0.2380 acres of the GC and SF addition, commonly known as 1306 East Avenue H, Lampasas, Texas, Lampasas County. We did discuss this in public hearing. Does council have a motion?
I'd move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Clark, a second from Mr. Williamson. Any discussion from council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Item 7.5, discussion and possible action regarding the first reading of an ordinance to consider approval, denial, or approval with modifications of request for a specific use permit in an area zoned commercial C to allow for 2-family residential duplexes, SF2. The property is described as Block 3, part of Lot 3, lots 4 through 7, East Lampasas Addition, portion of Mill Street between College and Brick Street.
Mayor and Council, this item was discussed during public hearing, and I'm just asking that you approve the first reading of the ordinance.
Do I have a motion from council?
Recommend approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. 7.6, discussion and possible action regarding the first reading of an ordinance to consider approval, denial, or approval with modifications, a request for a specific use permit in an area zoned commercial C to allow for microblading, cosmetic tattooing services. The property is described as Block 2, Lot 8, East Lampasas Edition, commonly known as 1002 East 4th Street, Lampasas, Texas, Lampasas County.
Mayor and council, this item was discussed during public hearing. I'm just asking that you approve the first reading of the ordinance.
Recommend approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous as well. 7.7, discussion of possible action to consider approval, denial, or approval with modifications, minor plat of Portwood, described as 3.01 acres out of the John Burleson Survey, abstract number 42, City and County of Lampasas, Texas, generally located at 1316 Central Texas Expressway.
Mayor and council, this item was discussed during public hearing, and I'm just asking you to consider approval of the minor plat.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a second this time for Mr. White. Any discussion?
I have one question. The only comment I'd make is it's a flag lot, and I don't know what else you'd do with that because of the depth of the lot, but I'm not in favor of flag lots in the community.
Thank you for your feedback. We did discuss it with regarding the access for those two lots, and they will have a shared access point with an easement
Right.
shared back and forth. So, and that's why it didn't go just to have it administratively. We went to planning and zoning. as
Yes,
well.
I know, there's not really much else you can do with that, and I'd rather see something on it than it sat there empty, but flag lots in the past have been a problem here in the city.
Agreed. I do have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you, Becky. 7.8, discussion of possible action regarding the Schindler Elevator Maintenance Agreement for the Calvert Building.
Mayor and council, staff believes strongly, and as well as fire marshal, that we need to engage Schindler for the ongoing maintenance of our elevator here. And I think certainly the mayor may have remember that when Schindler had to come up here for something that wasn't one of their issues, it was pretty expensive for just a one-time visit. This would also include the annual testing. We bring this to you, it is currently budgeted. We bring this to you because there are some options within their proposal for 3, 5, or 10-year pricing. As the term of the maintenance agreement is longer, so too is there risk for a more major repair that they would have to make. There are some things that we do want them to write into this contract that they have at least verbally said that they would in terms of a cap on the annual increase, as well as a specific maintenance schedule. But we ask that you consider a motion to approve the Maintenance Plus agreement and allow us to negotiate just a couple of those inclusions into the contract. The 10 years is a long time, and we save a little bit of money doing it over 10 years, but I would certainly think that the 3 or the 5-year term would also be appropriate with some slight addition in cost.
Finley, how much maintenance is there monthly on the elevator?
It's interesting because we've had them out probably 4 or 5 times already. And the technician that came out said, you know, a lot of times we have to work through some of these kinks off the bat, and so they are out more frequently the first year or two. But, I mean, my experience with the one in Llano is that we'd have to call them at least 2 or 3 times a year.
And I could speak to the one at the high school. They have to call at least 2 or 3 times a year, if not more. I think it's money well spent.
I mean, I'm just curious.
Can we get a motion from council and then open it up for discussion? I'm sorry.
Recommend approval.
Do I have a second?
I would recommend approval for 3-year. Is that what you're asking for?
The motion came from you. Can you specify the length of the contract you wish?
3 year.
3. And Ms. Keeney, do you
Second.
wish to second? Okay.
just didn't know what kind of maintenance that it actually takes. I mean, is it grease in it or something, or?
You know, I think,
I just don't know how they
yeah,
work.
I mean, it's a,
I want to add, while you're looking up what it is that you're looking up, part of me is disappointed in the money that we spent on an elevator, and already a year into it, we're calling for repairs, but I've been told by everybody that I've complained about this too, that that's typical, so.
Well, that's one of the reasons I had asked for, or looked at a 3-year to see how they respond to start with.
but it does include the, you know, the lubrication, examination, adjustment, the replacement of equipment. The Schindler Plus is inclusive of the major components as well as the minor components. You know, a lot of what they've come out here to do recently is adjust sensors, the closers, you know, where they weren't necessarily lining up, or they, you know, the elevator wouldn't see them and see which floor to go to. So there's some things like that that have been done recently, but
And part of the maintenance contract is an 8-hour callback time, correct?
correct.
That in itself is valuable. So I do have a motion and a second on the table to approve the 3-year maintenance contract with Schindler for the elevator at the Calvert Building. Does anyone wish to offer any additional input? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you. 7.9, discussion of possible action regarding approval to declare 2 zero-turn mowers used by the Parks Department as surplus and allowed to dispose of as state law allows.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Parks Department has 2 zero-turn mowers that they have been using to maintain the city parks and various properties. One of the mowers needs a PTO clutch, will not engage, and needs a new battery. The other one is just for parts. It's an incomplete mower. So they're requesting to declare the 2 zero-turn mowers as surplus and allowed to dispose of as state law allows.
Recommend approval.
Second.
A second from Ms. Toops. Any discussion?
I have one question. What's the age on the one that needs the clutch?
Finley, do you know by chance? Chris is not.
The age of the mower?
I'm sorry, I do not know the age of it.
Okay.
Can
be glad to
can
check.
staff follow up and give him that information at a later time?
Okay.
I do have a motion and a second. Any additional comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you. 7.10, discussion and possible selection of a website photo contest winner.
Mayor and Council, we did have 3 entries this year, or sorry, this month.
I have a motion from council on a particular entry. Don't want a winner this month?
They're all kind of blah. I would recommend number 2 as a courthouse.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second for entry number 2. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you. Item 7.11, discussion and possible action to continue the use of Fuel Man for gasoline and diesel for the city of Lampasas for the fiscal year 2020-2021.
Mayor and council, as you can see, I'd like to get the approve for Fuel Man. We did send out several bids. We didn't get any quotes back. I think it's kind of due to COVID. A lot of people aren't working there, so we called around, and most people just don't want to bid. And it works well with Fuel Man, so I'd recommend just staying with Fuel Man.
A motion from council.
Motion to approve?
Second.
A motion and a second from Ms. Toops. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. 7.12, discussion of possible action regarding the appointment of city prosecutor.
Mayor and Council, this item is placed on the agenda for your formal consideration and appointment of Martin Milliken Cooley as city prosecutor, primarily through their attorney, Jackie Baltran. And this is, we have discussed this with them, and I believe I sent you out a letter of engagement, which basically mirrors their application as well. So just for your consideration.
you have a motion from council?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 That is unanimous. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Have a good evening. Thank you very much.